The 80s were a magical time. I know because I wasn't there. But the 80s Renaissance has been a thing since like 1992, so I at least have a warped sense of how it was in those beloved 10 years. The charts were dominated by Madonna, Michael Jackson, and Prince, bright neon colors as far as the eye can see, Reagan was president, and there was a shit ton of kick-ass movies, including my all-time favorites Stand By Me, Batman, The Breakfast Club, Blue Velvet, Dead Poets Society, King of Comedy, I could go on. But the horror and slightly macabre flicks of the 80s? A Nightmare on Elm Street, Gremlins, The Evil Dead, Day of the Dead, Beetlejuice, Hellraiser, The Shining, The Fly, and The Thing. You couldn't walk 2 feet without stepping on a gem from the horror genre. And there's one film that encapsulates both the 80s, and it gets horror if you want to call it that. And that's The Lost Boys.
You're a vampire, Michael. My own brother, a goddamn shit-sucking vampire. Oh, you wait till Mom finds out, buddy.
With a remake recently being announced, I thought it was a better time than ever to look into this franchise. And yes, I said franchise, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. The original movie, I feel, is a pretty good time capsule of 1987. It's unapologetically 80s, but it never goes over the top with the cheesiness and becomes unbearably dated like a lot of 80s flicks people worship. Don't get me wrong, the movie is chock full of cheese, but it's never overwhelming, and it remains charming all these years later. But to get more in depth, first off, we have a great cast. Everyone is very likable, and there's a ton of great chemistry to be found between the main characters. There's a great family connection, and Grandpa is a big mood. The movie's world building is also way better than it needs to be. Within the first 5 minutes, soundtrack to a cover of People Are Strange by Echo and the Bunnymen, you can tell Santa Carla is not your run-of-the-mill town. It's run down, it's seedy, and it's swimming with vampires. And most of the body count are made up of people you have already seen before in the flick, so even the expendable characters aren't as expendable as they could easily be. You even see the wife of the security guard put up a missing poster for him after you see him get killed in the beginning of the film. The use of gore is also really good. You don't see any for the first half, and you might think, oh, this is a nice little film. But then... the film goes from 0 to 100 really quickly, and it doesn't really ease you into it. It serves as a great way to shock the audience, but also Michael as he's realizing what he's turning into. The soundtrack also fits the flick to a T. I probably wouldn't listen to any of these songs outside of the movie, but they all add to the film rather than subtract from it. And why does this song go so fucking hard? But with that being said, it's by no means perfect. Why do the Frog Brothers go out of their way to inform Sam of Santa Carla's vampire problem? Do they do this for every customer they get? Why does Sam's dog attack Michael? They say he was protecting his owner, but all he did was just walk in and stand there.
He's just standing there, menacingly!
The pacing is a little whack. It's hard to gauge how much time has passed. Like one day Michael is a normal dude, and the next day he's a cranky vampire who sleeps all day and wears sunglasses in the house. There's not really much progression. In the film they talk about it as if it's been weeks, but it feels like hours. And that ending is also a bit of a mess. Sorry, spoilers for a movie that came out 30 years ago. Max is all of a sudden revealed to be the head vampire and was a father figure to David and his gang the entire time. And as quickly as we learn about this, Grandpa drives into the house and Max is impaled by a wooden stake and fucking explodes. It happens so fast and everybody just forgets that little factoid. But it's hard to get mad about any of my misgivings. It's by no means a masterpiece, but it accomplishes what it sets out to do, and that's a fun night out at the movies. It has a style that's hard to replicate, and it's hard to walk away from this movie not being thoroughly entertained. Many sequels were written and drafted, one of which being called The Lost Girls, which is only sort of awful, and director Joel Schumacher tried several times to get a sequel off the ground, but he was too busy with bat nipples to get anything going. So it seemed like a sequel just couldn't happen. It had been too long and, oh, you're fucking kidding me. Over 20 years later, they just had to make a direct-to-DVD sequel with none of the original cast returning, except for... Let me get this straight. Out of everyone you could have possibly gotten from the original film, you choose maybe the most inconsequential out of everyone? You may as well just tell an entirely new story. Oh wait, but then you can use the Lost Boys IP and rake in all the big bucks. Well, medium-sized bucks. Even Joel Schumacher, who after years of trying to get a sequel made, didn't want anything to do with this thing. And I can see why. The time for a sequel had come and gone. I don't even understand why in the year of our Lord, 2008, they would even try to do such a thing. Oh. Okay, I don't know this for sure, but Twilight released the same year this film did, and that movie had a lot of buzz, and you could argue that The Lost Boys was ahead of the game in terms of making vampires sexy in order to market to teenage girls. So how much money you want to bet that Warner Brothers saw the hype for this upcoming Twilight flick, and attempted to cash in with a half-baked Lost Boys sequel? But before we get into the turd in question, there's actually a comic book entitled Lost Boys Reign of Frogs. Set 3 years after the original film, it is revealed that David is still alive, Grandpa was a vampire the entire time, then dies, Alan goes missing after being bitten, and then in present day, David is still after Edgar, Michael and Star died in a car crash, and the villain of Lost Boys The Tribe is revealed. Now, I couldn't get a legit copy of this because... but I have my... ways to get my hands on this thing, and it honestly isn't awful. I'm not really a comic book guy with some exceptions, but it was an enjoyable enough read and a far more pleasurable experience than the film was made to advertise, I'll say that much. But before we get into that, don't forget to like and subscribe. Okay, thanks, bye. Lost Boys The Tribe starts very similarly to the original film. Get used to me saying that sentence. The villain is ganged as something they shouldn't, and they end up killing the guy who catches them, but in this movie, it's vampire Tom fucking Savini. Why? He had nothing to do with the original film as far as I can tell. He only exists so people can point to him like he's Stan Lee or something. And speaking of Stan Lee, it's nothing more than a cameo. Whereas in the trailer, you're led to believe he has a much bigger role. Fuck this, man, I'd rather watch Dawn of the Dead. And it's during this opening scene that we learn two things. One, the effects and action sequences fucking blow, and Angus Sutherland, who plays the main villain Shane West, cannot act.
We jumped your gate. It's not like we went for a swim in your pool. Yeah.
The special effects range from awful CGI to simply speeding up the footage to make the vampires look fast, Uwe Boll style.
Fuck yourself.
Along with your fair share of everyone's favorite action movie tropes, including, but not limited to, lightning fast cuts and a lot of shaky cam with no sense of shot composition, so you can't even tell what's going on half the time. Whoever edited this needs to be fired. You fucked up, Amanda. The special effects in this film are a prime example of just because you can, doesn't mean you should. The original film was very smart in the way it used special effects. They shot scenes from the vampire's POV while they were flying so you wouldn't see the actors in front of some cheap green screen, and when you did show them flying on screen, it was shot with wires and harnesses, and they shot around the equipment, and you can't even notice. And when green screens are used, it's used sparingly. Meanwhile, this film couldn't even afford to shoot on a real beach apparently. Or like in the scene when Star wants to go inside Michael's house and she just appears after a cut. That works way better than whatever the fuck this is. The gore is okay though, I'll give them that.
Suck my dick, bitch!
And as you may be able to gather, Angus Sutherland is the half-brother of Kiefer Sutherland, and he's also son to Donald Sutherland. I guess someone rolled snake eyes in the talent department. He acts like Tommy Wiseau, only Tommy is more charismatic.
Do you know how much the fear of death has limited you, Chris? The negative impact it's had on your life?
What a story, Mark.
When David spoke in the original film, he had a strange aura and presence. He left the audience hanging on every word he said, he was oddly seductive, and there's a treasure trove of classic lines from him. Meanwhile, Shane West is at his most memorable when he's aping a line that his older brother said in the original film.
You'll never grow old, Michael. And you'll never die. But you must feed.
We'll never grow old. You'll never die, and you'll never know fear again. But you have to take that first step.
There's no elegance, there's no style, he just said the line. That's it. We haven't even gone past the opening scene yet. Yay! Then we get a boring and lackluster opening montage of the city of Luna Bay, because the first film had one, but in the first film it acted as a way to introduce the main characters to this weird place that has likely seen better days. Whereas the town and the tribe is just your average beachy and surfy town. It's astonishingly normal, so I don't see why so much attention is put into it. It just wastes my time and acts as an excuse for me to hear low-rent AC/DC. We're then introduced to our awful leads who basically basically equate to slasher flick body count fodder.
Told you this was gonna work out.
Yeah, then where's the sun?
The sun's overrated. Gives you wrinkles.
For being main characters, they sure lack character. In fact, I even forgot their names, so let me look this up. Oh, you've got to be kidding me. Chris and Nicole Emerson. They're the orphan son and daughter of Michael and Star from the first movie. I didn't even notice the first time I watched this flick, which probably gives you an idea of how much relevance this has to the plot.
You look so much like your mom.
No, she doesn't! And after this tragedy, they're moving to a new place that is a bit worse for wear in a new city, and they meet an older relative who's a bit overbearing. I wonder where I've heard this before. Hey guys, Editing James here, and I don't know why, but in this video I keep calling Angus Sutherland's character Shane West. I don't know why his character is called Shane Powers. I don't know where I got the West part from. I'm sorry. Please excuse my autism. Anyway, Shane West meets one of our heroes, Chris, and they both bond because they were both former pro surfers, I guess. And Chris is invited to his place for a party. And after maybe the most bizarre moments in film history, both him and his sister Nicole decide to go.
I have got the Goonies. What? Excuse me? The Goonies? Oh my gosh, you mean to say that two of you have never heard of the Goonies?
I really can't get over how weird this scene is. And speaking of that, there's a lot of lame pop culture references. The original film had some too, but they didn't serve as the basis of a joke or anything. And they didn't take you out of the film so much like this does. And it's weird how this film focuses so much on surfing. I couldn't really wrap my head around it until I found out that this film's script was originally about a gang of surfing werewolves called the Tribe, but Warner rejected it due to it being too similar to the Lost Boys. But then they had the bright idea to turn the script into a Lost Boys sequel and replaced werewolves with vampires and called it a day. Oh fuck. Then the party setting is simply put excruciating. It all of a sudden feels like an American Pie scene with gratuitous nudity and sex scenes. And I'm no prude, but the original film never tried this hard. It feels like it's trying to appeal to the kids, and it just comes across as desperate. And then we're properly introduced to Shane's gang, and I hate them. Hate them. They're just obnoxious, and I feel rage whenever they're on screen. And can this fucking editing chill out for a minute?
And it's Risk, fucking Emerson, and his hot little piece of ass sister, Nicole.
Let's just go.
What the fuck are you guys doing here?
Shane invited us.
No, idiot, here in Luna Bay. What are you, fucking stalking me?
Just go.
We live here now.
Great, maybe we can get
Chris.
together again, Nicole. I can
Okay,
show
you bar
around.
bitching for him?
Not you.
That's your new
Maybe
job,
hot
man?
sister,
Just
though.
not cutting it
Hey,
for you?
speaking of which,
Did
it's
you give
been
me
a
a
long
drink?
time, but I gotta tell you, you're looking
New Year's
really
bar
good in
bitch,
those
right?
boots.
Why don't you stop being such an ass?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Walk away. Nicole, you're looking good. You're really growing into yourself.
Fucking Christ, the audio levels, the audio editing, everything in this scene is a complete mess. I'm getting a lot of flashbacks to the room.
Here you go.
That's me. How much is it?
It'll be $18.
Here you go. Keep the change. Hi, doggy.
You're my favorite customer.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Shane West takes a liking to Nicole and decides to turn her into a vampire. He literally has never met her before in his life and just decides to turn her and be her lover until the end of time. Again, let's look at the first film. Sure, Michael was turned as soon as he met the gang, but that wasn't David's original intention. He was supposed to be Star's first kill, which is why he was lured into their lair. But this film apparently didn't realize that because it ripped so much from the original film without understanding why Joel Schumacher and the writers made the decisions they did. Did they even watch the original film? Because I have my doubts. Then Chris gets pissy, drives Nicole home, and she tries to kill him to make her first kill until Edgar Frog shows up inside their house to subdue her. What? Why is he in their house? I know Chris left his details at his trailer in the hopes of getting a job, but why did he take the initiative of breaking and entering to a random person's place? Does he do this for all the people who want a job? Then later some vampire tries to seduce Chris and then kill him, and this happens.
Stop, seriously, stop! Get off me! Lisa, get off! Lisa, get off!
It would have been funny if she was just kinky and he killed her for no reason. We were then exposition dumped by Edgar with some brief glimpses of the events we missed between the first film and the Tribe. We don't really learn anything new here, and why is Corey Feldman still doing that voice?
Your sister's become a member of the undead, a Night Stalker, a Bloodsucker, Nosferatu.
In the original, he and Alan had this tough guy presence, sure, but it was a joke. It was played for laughs, but here it seems far less self-aware. On the bright side, these scenes with Corey are the few I can get some sort of enjoyment from, since he actually has some charisma and goodwill from being in the first flick, and you can tell he's actually trying, unlike our main lead.
They can read your thoughts before you even have them.
Come on, man, she's family, asshole.
But he's not even in the film that much, so if you want to watch it purely to indulge in your nostalgia, you'll still have a miserable experience. And in the very next scene, we're dumped with the same exposition that was just dumped on us before. And this is the same information we learned decades ago, I should reiterate. And they try to add humor, and it's so forced and painfully unfunny.
I tried to eat that guy! Do you realize that? Do you know what it's like for me to want to drink blood? Do you know how disgusting that is? I'm a vegetarian.
It takes you out of the movie with these shitty jokes and quips. In the original movie, you learned of Michael's condition gradually throughout the film. You could tell something wasn't quite right as each new clue was revealed. And it was played relatively straight, and the actors didn't sound this disinterested.
See, right now you're only like half of a vampire, which means you can still be turned back human, right? As long as Eddie and I kill the head vampire before you feed, so just don't eat anyone.
Come on, buddy, your sister's turning into a vampire. And you're talking to her as if she can't decide what she wants for dinner. Soon enough, Nicole feels an urge to meet Shane at his lair, for some reason. And my god, it looks so cheap and bad, but that's besides the point. We also see Shane's gang are gamers, and they mutilate each other for fun.
Dude, you're fucking squirting everyone. You're a squirter.
I cannot put into words how much I loathe these characters. Chris goes to the police and literally shows a picture of her, presumably taken from the start of the film during this scene. The background is the same and she's wearing the same stuff, but nobody took a pic of her. And it's clearly just a behind the scenes pic they used. Could they be any more lazy? Could the actress not take a picture of herself from an old family photo album or something? Then as Chris is lured back to their base by Shane's gang, we see the worst use of a Dutch angle I've ever seen. Gross. In general, the cinematography is really bad, and it was clear that there was no love put into it. Chris drinks Shane's blood after wasting more time to become a half vampire and destroy their operation from the inside, which doesn't make sense since Edgar tells him that vampires can apparently read minds, which has never been mentioned in the Lost Boys universe prior, but okay, I guess they can read minds. But I guess they can't because they never call Chris out on his bullshit until he attacks Shane's posse later. Edgar then randomly shows up to save his neck from out of nowhere. Okay then. Shane plans Nicole's first kill as this knockoff Pete Wentz lookalike, who I've not mentioned up until now because he really did nothing other than get cucked the entire time he's been on screen. Then Shane and Edgar show up, and it's around here I should mention how bad the makeup is. They hardly look like how vampires did in the first movie, and they look more like the monsters from The Descent. And hearing the actors clumsily run through their dialogue in this makeup is just too funny for me for some reason.
Come on, taking in someone's essence, consuming living human blood, that's the real rush.
Then it seems like Chris is about to die, but Nicole pulls an Uno reverse card, kills Shane instead. It's super unclimactic, there's never any huge battle like I thought there would be. It felt like it was building up towards something much bigger than this. The ending to the original film wasn't perfect, but it had a pretty good final battle if nothing else, and it added some levity with Grandpa saying at the very end,
"One thing about living in Santa Carla I never could stomach. All the damn vampires."
This film tries something similar with their aunts, but it just doesn't land, as I sit there and wonder why I even bothered to watch this shit. But oh, we're not done yet. We have a mid-credit scene. Marvel, eat your heart out. And here we see Corey Haim return as a vampire and face down Edgar. They talk some bullshit alluding to shit we never saw even in the comic, then charge at each other and the screen fades to black. Okay then. There's alternate endings where right after the event scene in the film, Sam approaches Edgar, they go to a beach, bullshit about the upcoming sequel, oh wait, and we see Alan Frog driving in a car as a vampire. There's two different versions of this ending. The only difference is in one of them, Sam is shown to have bite marks, meaning he is a half vampire, and both are very underwhelming, I must say. They exist solely for fan service. And it's lame that the only times we're shown more characters from the original film are in throwaway alternate endings and mid-credit scene. Though after looking into it, I guess I can understand why they made this decision. Corey Feldman apparently refused to sign on to the film unless Corey Haim was given a role. They gave him one, but unfortunately Haim was still reeling from his drug addiction, and he was a complete mess when he showed up on set. He couldn't remember his lines, so his scenes were cut down to those endings I just discussed. It's a shame, but I guess I understand. Overall, this film is, simply put, not worth your time. The characters suck, the story goes from plotting bore to a painful rehash, the effects and editing are awful, the cast is at best lacking to at worst embarrassing, the soundtrack blows, and it actively shits on the Lost Boys legacy in an awful way. If you're a diehard fan of the series, I'd recommend maybe reading the comic or just watching clips with Edgar Frog on YouTube. There's really not much here to get excited for. Then they made another one. Thankfully, Alan Frog comes back, but no Sam Emerson. Corey Haim said he was too busy to appear in the film, but he was excited to be in Lost Boys 4. I guess Traden took up too much of his time. But there would be no Lost Boys 4, and even if there was, Corey Haim could not appear as he tragically passed away from pneumonia during this film's production. Rest in peace, buddy. Anyway, let's honor Haim's legacy by looking at the next, and as of right now, final Lost Boys film, Lost Boys: The Thirst. I'm sorry, Corey, you deserve way better. The film begins with a pretty decent opening, all things considered. The cinematography is already better than The Tribe. The special effects are better, but they're not better by much. They're still incredibly cheap looking, and they wouldn't look out of place in an old Smosh video. The gore is not as good as even The Tribe. The practical effects are replaced with bad CGI. The vampire makeup is pretty much existent, which I guess is better than seeing discount Descent monsters, but I miss seeing the physical transformation of an actor. It looked like their skull changed shape whenever they turned, and I love that. Meanwhile, in this film, you can clearly see the fake vampire fangs inserted into the actors' mouths, and it looks more like someone in a cheap Halloween costume than a vampire. But this opening scene is still fun enough to watch since you get to see the Frog Brothers in action, including Jameson Newlander returning as Alan Frog. It's pure fan service, but guess I'll take what I can get. It's a flashback sequence that takes place in Washington, D.C., and it's here we see that Alan was forced to drink vampire blood, I guess, which makes him a half vampire, which I think is supposed to explain why he wasn't in the tribe, but Edgar talked about Alan as if he was dead or fully turned.
I let you get away with that shit the first time because I understand what it's like to lose a family member to the other side.
We even see him fully turned in the alternate endings for the tribe, but I guess those weren't canon. Also, this goes against what we read in the Grain of Frogs comic book. In the comic, we saw this happen in Santa Carla in the Widow Johnson's lair from an unnamed female vampire. And keep in mind that this comic was marketed as the sequel to the original film, the thing that ties it to these new movies. And this movie seems to erase that, or at least try and rewrite it. If you're going to create new shitty lore, at least stick to that shitty lore. I don't think I'm asking for the world here. You have a passable credit sequence. It's not amazing, you can tell it was done on the cheap, but it was better than The Tribe. I also like the artwork used here, but I feel cheated after realizing it was taken right from the comic. So let me get this straight. You don't respect the comic enough to stick to the lore it set up, but you're fine with taking artwork from it so you don't have to do anything creative? Now I just feel sorry for the people who made the comic. But anyway, the story starts in present day 10 years ago in San Cazador. Okay. And Edgar's about to be evicted from his trailer, and this serves as nothing but a thing to get the plot rolling. And it's here you realize that Corey Feldman,
I work nights,
is not a leading man. First off, he's still doing that fucking voice, which is now somehow even more grating, and he's no longer a supporting actor, but the main star. I mean, I guess Corey Feldman is a slightly more bankable star than many of these people, but he's not good enough to pull off the old badass character this movie is trying to make him out to be. He's not Sylvester Stallone, he's not Arnold Schwarzenegger, he's Corey Feldman. It don't get me wrong, Corey can give a great performance when he's given the right material. He's in Stand By Me, my all-time favorite film, and it'd be untrue for me to say he doesn't have talent, but even Corey Feldman at his best could not carry a film on his own. A midlife crisis Corey Feldman is no exception. And again, the Frog Brothers weren't meant to be even slightly serious characters.
I told them they were Marines, commandos. Well, they don't think they're funny. They're going to kill vampires.
They were a goof, it was a joke, a somewhat subtle joke, but still, a joke. And trying to turn Edgar Frog into Rambo really defeats the purpose of the character, even if Feldman could pull it off.
Fucking vampires.
Which he can't. He gets so many quips and one-liners to use and it all falls flat. He doesn't have that kind of charisma. The only positive to his performance is, I guess there's a lot of it. Unlike The Tribe, there's a lot of Edgar Frog in this movie. So if you just needed more of that frog boy, I guess this movie has you covered. But anyway, this bitch shows up who's basically a stand-in for Stephenie Meyer, the author of the Twilight books, and this movie takes a lot of shots at the Twilight series. It's pretty funny because if any movie is below the Twilight series, it's Lost Boys the Thirst. Does this movie really think it's that much better? And I don't like Twilight either, don't get me wrong, but this pisses me off more than it should.
You glorify vampirism. You make being a vampire look sexy.
And the original film didn't? I'm sure many beans were flicked to the thought of melted Kiefer Sutherland back in the day. And she comes to Edgar because her brother has been kidnapped by rabid raving vampires who want to create an empire of other rabid raving vampires with vials of vampire blood that they're disguising as drugs.
Now creating their own global pandemic.
So her brother's been kidnapped, and I don't see why he would want to get away, personally. Also, this actress is insufferable, and she was definitely hired for her acting ability and nothing else. And I can't even remember her name, so I'm just gonna refer to her as Stephenie Meyer for the rest of this video. Hey, if the movie is ditching subtlety, why shouldn't I? So Stephenie offers a lot of money to rescue her brother and kill the alpha vampire who they believe to be DJ X, and killing him would undo all of vampirism. So Edgar goes to his own brother, now a reclusive half vampire who feeds on animals he taxidermies. Edgar tries to get the band back together, but Alan's not interested.
As far as I'm concerned,
there's no such thing as vampires.
Yeah, it turns out that Alan is not in this movie very much. Great. The trailer makes it seem like a very different story, but oh well, I can't say I'm too surprised. But it's during the scene we learned that I guess the mid-credit scene in The Tribe ended with Sam dying?
What about Sam?
Sam's gone. He turned, and I had to do what I had to do.
And Michael and Star aren't dead?
I guess that cancels out Michael and Star.
Yeah. I'm pretty much persona non grata with the entire Emerson family at this point.
Again, why go against your own shitty lore? It was only 2 years ago, I doubt you forgot. And I guess Kristen and Cole from the first movie aren't the offspring of Michael and Sam, even though they share the same name? And I'm okay with that actually, fuck these characters. But why even contradict it in the first place? It just makes these new movies hard to follow if you're paying attention. And here we are treated to the same shitty cover of Cry Little Sister from the first film during this awful scene of our villains jumping out of a plane, and I have nothing to say but DJ X is a terrible and forgettable villain. He's not intimidating or scary, he's just an annoying douche.
What do you guys have to drink in this jalopy?
You.
Edgar's friend is attacked for some reason. And here we see some use of POV shots, which I appreciate. It's not done as well as it is in the first film, as in this movie they speed up the footage so much and it looks kinda shitty, but I'd rather that than shitty CGI or green screen, so I guess I'll take it. DJX's vampire gang are planning a rave and are going to sacrifice Stephenie Meyer's brother in San Cara, I can't even remember the name of this town this film is based in. So she also hires some reality show reject who has a cameraman following him with a flip cam. Dude, you are not going to get usable footage with a 2010 flip cam. I don't even know why you're even bothering, and it's not even on! And he doesn't even believe vampires are real, and he thinks it's all an act.
You know, I kind of hate the fact that we split up. People in horror movies always split up, and they always get killed.
Oh, there's nothing to worry about, Klaus. Don't you get it? This is all some stupid role-playing game. All we're gonna find is some little emo goth kids with fake fangs and contact lenses.
Why did she even hire him if he's this ill-prepared? He's more of a hindrance than a benefit. What's the point? So what if he can wrestle a crocodile? He's not gonna do much good against a vampire. And guess what? It doesn't work out well for him. Also, because he doesn't take it seriously, he just dips when he finds her brother because he found them too early.
Turn around. Let's go. What? It's too early to find him. We gotta find him at the end of the episode. I haven't even had the chance to put the beat down on any goths yet.
But he's right here.
Dude, turn around. Sorry, Peter. Let's go.
You think someone would be guarding the sacrifice, and also, lol, get cucked. So then we get more shitty action, and oh shit, Edgar's dead. And here you're probably seeing that they seem to be somewhat aware of how ridiculous this film is, but indulging in these cliches and pastiches and being aware of it does not absolve you of using said cliches and pastiches. Unless you're doing something interesting with it, like Black Dynamite or something, all you do is disappear up your own ass. So after that, What's-His-Face dies, they go back, and why is the camera guy and Stephenie Meyer coming? You forbade her from coming before due to her not being qualified.
Everybody on this mission is a trained veteran. You could be killed, or worse, you could be turned into one of them.
But now she can go? And what about the cameraman? He's only useless to film, and the guy he was filming got his fucking heart ripped out. But anyway, time for some raving. You know, he looks real calm for someone who's about to be sacrificed. Edgar and DJ, veteran child, fight with swords for some reason. He's about to die, but Alan appears out of nowhere for some reason and saves him. I didn't know how he got there, but okay. Alan! But shock of shocks, DJ XXX Tentacion wasn't the alpha vampire because after some assumed incest, it's revealed that Stephenie is not brother but lover is the alpha vampire.
You're the alpha.
Oh, I bet you did not see that coming.
Huh?
What a twist!
No. Twists are supposed to be hinted at throughout the film. Stuff that on a rewatch, as if I'm gonna rewatch this shit, innocuous things in the film all of a sudden make sense as you think about the film you just watched, and they contribute to the big picture. But you can't just pull something out of your ass and pretend you're being clever. That's the epitome of lazy storytelling. And this twink is the head vampire. He looks like Draco Malfoy in those early Harry Potter movies. This guy isn't the alpha anything. He looks like the Virgin in those memes. And they were suppressing him with garlic? I thought garlic didn't work.
Garlic don't work, boys!
And DJ Jazzy Jeff wanted to drink his blood to become the new alpha vampire, and Stephenie wanted to become a vampire too, but he instead just kills her for some reason.
What an asshole!
Then Alan and Edgar go to kill the beta boy vampire, but they're subdued, and he wants Edgar to be his vampire hitman, even though he told his legion of vampire followers to kill him just before. Also, this guy is not threatening in the slightest. He can't deliver his dialogue worth a shit, and he sounds like he should be commentating a Minecraft Let's Play instead.
I want you to keep on doing what you're already so very good at. Hunting and killing vampires.
And apparently he can make Alan do what he wants and mind control him because he's a half vampire and he's the alpha or something. I have no fucking idea. Then he says this awful reach out of a line.
Alan, kill your brother. You'll feel better.
And there's a lot of awful callbacks in this film, and I don't understand it at all. All you're doing is reminding people of a much better film they could be watching instead.
Kill your brother. You'll feel better.
But the beta boy is splashed with water, and Edgar blesses it because he made himself a priest from one of those websites in the prior movie. I guess that's canon or something. I don't fucking know. Alan turns back to normal. Edgar's GF or whatever, who I have barely mentioned as she isn't very important, turned out to be a werewolf the entire time. And as the movie ends, we once again have to hear that terrible Cry Little Sister cover. And that was it. It was 81 minutes. Barely over the legal amount of time you need to legally call something a film, according to the Screen Actors Guild. So it's barely even a movie. And I can tell as there are a bunch of scenes in this movie that went nowhere and did very little, if anything, to advance the plot. Fuck this movie. Overall, The Lost Boys of Thirst is better than The Tribe, I guess, but that is a very low bar. It's not even better by that much. I applaud it for not aping the original film so much, but Corey Feldman is an awful lead, the story barely makes sense, it goes against its own lore half the time, and it's just a miserable experience. Sure, it's fun to see Edgar and Alan Frog back together again, but that's only for the very beginning and the very end. In between that, you have an hour and 15 minutes of awful movie between. Unfortunately, a Lost Boys 4 never happened. Even though they tried to tease one with werewolves, I guess. And in the years since, there was a comic book that once again served as a sequel with stars vampire sisters coming into the picture. There was talk of a TV series, and we've now gotten a remake announced, and I'm honestly not completely against it. Don't get me wrong, I hate shitty remakes as much as the next guy, but they've tapped some real talents for this remake. They got Jaden Martell, who starred in the It movies, and I love those flicks. Well, I love the first one, I should say. John Entwistle is tapped to direct, and he was behind the unjustly cancelled I Am Not Okay With This, and I absolutely love that show. I binged all of it in one sitting. I highly recommend it. And there's some other promising names attached to this project. People will be quick to talk about ruining the legacy of the original film, but rest easy. If these pieces of shit didn't ruin the Lost Boys legacy, it's likely nothing will. But that's just my opinion. Tell me what you guys think below in the comments. You can click right here for more videos, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell in order to remain notified and to support the channel. But anyways, take it easy, party people.